Octopath Traveller 2 has been one of my all-time favourite games ever since I first played it back in 2024. The first game was still fresh in my mind, having beat it a month beforehand. And while I liked it, it had its issues, mainly with how slow grind it was and the boss rush you had to do at the end just to get one attempt at the final boss. But it's still a good game, with an excellent soundtrack. Octopath 2 takes all the complaints I had with the first game and improves them. To me, it's the perfect sequel, and I want an excuse to revisit the game after playing Octopath 0, which I love equally as much as 2. But I didn't want to do another regular playthrough. I wanted to attempt a solo run. For those who haven't played the first 2 Octopath games, you can select one of 8 characters to start the game as. This doesn't affect the overall story, but whoever you choose is locked to the party until you complete their story. In a normal playthrough, you would then go and find the other characters and add them to your party, starting their stories and giving you more options in combat. With a solo run, obviously we can't do that. Whoever I pick, I must beat their character's story to say I've completed the run. Unfortunately, because of how the game works, I can't do the final boss or secret boss without all party members, so just the starting character's story will have to do. As you can see from the title, I will be completing Ochette's story. Mainly because the main gimmick she has I really didn't use as much as I should have in my main playthrough. Other than that, there's not much reason I chose her in particular. I'm aware this kind of challenge isn't original and has been done before. In fact, on the achievement list for the first game on Steam and Xbox, you had to complete a solo run with at least one character. But I wanted to do this challenge and make a video on it to give video editing a shot, and see if people would watch this type of video. There will definitely be some mistakes in this video, but I hope regardless you enjoy, and provide any helpful feedback. Alright, I'm done yapping now. On to the challenge run. I will be briefly going over the story, but not in immense detail in case some watching are interested in playing the game after this video. If you do care about spoilers though, come back after playing the game. It goes on sale fairly often, and if you like turn-based games, you'll love this. Probably. The story begins with a flashback of Ochette choosing her animal companion 10 years before the events of her story. This is the only choice that actually changes some events and dialogue across all character stories, but other than that, the decision won't make a huge impact on combat. I choose the Jackal this time, as I chose the Owl in my main playthrough. Also, fun fact, this lion has the same voice actor as Sotro from Persona 5, and I can never unhear the voice. Coming back to the present, Ochette and her companion named Carla are hunting a massive iguana because he ate too much. The combat isn't worth going over too much for this first chapter, as at this point it's basically just a casual playthrough. Just know that the iguana gets captured, used in one fight against the British who want to colonise more land, then immediately make into some jerky to feed Ochette's tribe. After that fight, Ochette, Sojuro Lion and Akala share a meal, then the British come back asking for help because a child got lost in the tomb of the Warden Beasts. Some fancy racism back and forth later, Ochette agrees to go find the child. As I head over to the tomb, let's go over Ochette's kit to see what exactly I'm working with. Ochette has the main class of Hunter, which is like a hybrid of damage and support. Her 2 weapon options are bows and axes, but as I will explain in a bit, they're not the only attack types I'm limited to. As for her class skills, we've got a great option for breaking bow weak foes with Precise Shot, ways to apply buffs to myself and cancel out enemy buffs, an attack that works like False Swipe in Pokemon that makes it easier to not accidentally kill a target I want to capture, and a way to make enemies always move last, though I don't see that being too useful in a solo run. Ochette also has the unique ability to capture monsters in battle, which the odds of doing so are tied to if they are a higher level, how much health they have left, and if any BP is used to increase the odds. These captures can be used in battle as one of my turns, meaning Ochette has one of the most diverse move pools in the game. For example, Carla will always hit a random enemy once with a physical attack they are weak to. If I chose the Owl at the start, I'd get basically the same ability, but for elemental damage. It's also important to note that summoned monsters don't scale off Ochette's stats, so as I get better gear, some of these monsters will become severely outclassed. And when I don't have a use for that monster anymore, or want to replace one, it gets chucked into the deep fryer, and can be used as a healing item.
So tasty!
Except for Akala, of course. As I progress and start unlocking her class skills, passive abilities are unlocked, like a better chance to attack first, raising her crit rate, raising the chance for rare monsters to spawn, and a chance to attack again after breaking an enemy. There's also 2 more moves I can unlock for her, but that can't be accessed until a little bit later. All characters in Octopath 2 get 2 overworld actions, one for the daytime and one for night. Ochette's daytime ability is to provoke NPCs into a fight, where only my beasts can attack. Beating them will give a bit of the usual battle rewards, but also knock out the NPC until the area is reloaded. The benefit of this is to clear NPCs from doorways that would have items behind them. Her night action is to bribe NPCs with a KFC made from captures to get them to follow me. They can be led to other NPCs as part of certain side stories, or used in battle as a summon. They'll do their action after yours, and after a few turns they run off. They have a certain amount of usages until they leave permanently, but can be found in their original spot, waiting for another bucket of wings. And no, this doesn't count as using another party member, as they don't get any equipment to use or can even be attacked in battle. It's basically a summon from any other RPG, but instead of summoning Bahamut, you summon a homeless man to shank a wolf. Overall, her kit's good. Her stats lean towards wanting to focus on physical damage, crits and multi-hitting moves while providing support where possible. Though for a solo run, brute force is probably going to be more effective. One downside is her SP stat is quite low, so a few equipment slots are going to have to be used to increase that. Right, I'm done with info dumping for now, back to the run. On the way to where the lost child is, I find a ring to increase my accuracy a bit, a composite bow, and unlock my first class skill. I choose Take Aim for a reliable early buff. At first, the child doesn't seem to trust Ochette, but she quickly changes her mind after being given him a chicken. On the way back, a thing attacks Ochette, but it doesn't get a single chance to attack or deal any damage. Just outside the village, the beastlings tell Ochette that the village is under attack and Soldier Line is trying to fight whatever it is off. Before going in to help, I buy a buckler, fur armor, and a hand axe from the merchant outside, then enter to see a Bloodborne boss fighting Soldier Line, who is weakened from the attacks. Ochette tags in and the first boss battle begins against Dark Entity. Once again, this fight isn't going to play out any differently from a casual playthrough. The boss is weak to axe attacks, so I chip away at its shield points until it's broken, then use boosted precise shots to deal big damage while getting in a take aim where possible. When getting low on HP or SP, I dig into some of the jerky supply, which is a really good early healing item, as it restores both health and SP, and is basically free to obtain. When the Dark Entity summons add supply, I use precise shots to target and break multiple at once. Not that they deal much damage, but leaving them alive gives room for the boss to consume one and get an attack buff. At half health, I unlock the ability to use Ochette's latent power. Every character gets one, and is basically an ultimate that has to be charged up by dealing damage, applying buffs, heals, and breaking targets. It also doesn't consume any SP. Ochette's latent power is Animal Instincts, which gives her the choice of 3 different moves: a high damage attack hitting everything, a higher damage single target attack, and a debuff move that hits all enemies and reduces their shield points by 1. In this fight I used Beastly Fangs on it when it was broken. After that I finish off the ads, and with 2 more volleys of precise shots, and then 1 more roll and slash from one of the summons I found on the way to the tomb, the boss falls. After the fight, Soldier Lion warns Ochette of a calamity approaching the island, and the only way to protect the island is to bring back the 3 beasts, who rest in different corners of the continent. She promises to do this, then Soldier Lion died. No, he just fell asleep. That's it for chapter 1. Ochette leaves her village behind to go search for the Warden Beast, but before I go any further, I quickly go back into the village and beat up a British person, guarding a chest containing a giant bow. I also buy a Traveller's Charm for a tiny bit more bulk, then I set out for real. So the way this game works is a bit different from Octopath 1 in terms of story progress. You would typically do the characters' chapters in a linear order. However, in this game, some characters have the choice to do some of their chapters in any order. In this case, all of Ochette's chapters except the final one are available to be taken on in any order. Despite the freedom, I still do them in the recommended order, starting with the Cataracta route at Conning Creek. On the way to the ship that can take me off the island of Totohaha, I do the introductory side story to get back a traveller's bag from a thief, and also find a better axe in a chest. After defeating some more enemies, I get enough jump points to unlock a baiting orb and unlock my first passive heightened senses. I take the ferry over to the west side of the map and arrive in Candlebrine and ignore the dying man on the floor. I'm sure this lovely lady will get him sorted out. But I do help out this pair of twins that keep trying to meet each other at completely different times by bribing one of them with some Nandos, then change into daytime to reunite them. Because of how the majority of side quests require certain path actions to complete, I'll only be able to complete the ones that require provoking or befriending, or the very few that don't need a path action to complete. Before leaving, I buy another bow. He gives me slightly less crit chance, but more speed and damage, which I think will be more important right now, just to find the exact same bow in a chest outside town. Brilliant! Then I make the mistake of heading towards Conning Creek before being fully prepared. I get jumped by 4 scorpions and die. Yeah, so by going towards a chapter 2, The game does expect us to have at least gotten a full party by now. Combined with being a bit underleveled and my gear not being the best it could be, this was never going to end well. I can't just rush all of Ochette's chapters with whatever I find on the way. I need to explore more and get better gear and more levels. Luckily the game autosaved just before I entered the area, so no progress was lost. Oh yeah, I also encountered a Kate. They're rare and have their own funky feet, and he's gone. So these guys are your obligatory XP bags in RPG games. They have high evasion, high defense, low health points, and a high chance to flee each turn. You can use elemental attacks or soul stones for a guaranteed hit, but I forgot about that at this point. But I do remember this later on, and use soul stones for an easy batch of XP. Reaching the desert outpost of Ryu, the soldiers are kind of in the way of the shop, so I politely asked them to move by screeching at them and lighting them up with arrows. Hikari wants to come with me, but I'm afraid I have to decline. Shame too, because this guy's busted. Maybe he'll be my next solo run character. I haven't decided yet. Anyway, with the soldiers peacefully removed, I can access the shop and buy a kite shield, bronze helm, and a copper breastplate after selling some items. Some of the items I sold were a mistake, as I later find out. I also swap out the Traveller's Charm for a War God's Talisman, giving me more damage but taking away some bulk. I don't mind doing this now, as the new gear I bought should compensate for the reduced HP and physical defense. In All Rush I buy an accessory to give a boost to SP, with my Partitia Aura farming, kill a man with a fear, and return a merchant's stolen goods, which gives me enough money to go back to Ryu and buy and upgrade the axe. On the way to Cropdale, I find a festival garland for more SP, but as for Cropdale itself, there was nothing of note there, so I didn't record much of this area, except for wandering into a cave and getting shot up. Yeah, these upgrades I'm getting aren't compensating for the lack of the other party members. I think I might have a plan to go into higher level areas and get better gear without getting mauled, but I'll finish exploring all the other starting areas before I try that. I explored all I can of the western continent for now, so it's time to get another ferry to the eastern continent. I get enough JP to get another skill, this time opting to get Cleaving Blow, and also equipping the Eagle Eyes passive for more crit chance. I also stopped by the black market to swap out my headgear for something called more bulk, and that seems to be my weak point right now, surviving the stronger enemies. Just outside New Delstar is an inventor who gives me access to the inventor secondary class. All characters can equip a second job class, giving them a new outfit in battle, access to use of weapons of that class if the character can't already, hold to stats, and moves and passives of that job class. Inventor is one of the 4 secret job classes, not part of the original 8 you can start with. This is why I said earlier I made a mistake selling some equipment, as I had completely forgotten equipping a secondary job class gives access to more weapon types, and I might have sold a decently powerful sword for this point in the game. My excuse is I was too familiar with Octopath 0 where secondary classes aren't a thing, so characters are stuck with whatever they have. Is it a good excuse? No, but I now remember, so I won't sell any weapons from now on unless I'm 100% sure I don't need it. It's not the end of the world right now, as I don't see myself using Inventor for too long. The Inventor's class skills are unlocked by delivering certain items to the guy in the house, some of which I can't get due to not having the right path action to do so. So I'm just using Inventor for the boosted stats until I find a secondary class that will be better for me. Now in New Delstar I see some absolute tossers messing with a dog. So Ochette turns into a pitbull and mauls them to near death, while Froné gives them the London handshake to finish him off. She can't come with me though, I don't associate with British people. And wait a minute, I'm British. I then robbed this random guard for a shield. Moving on to Flame Church, there wasn't a lot here except for a twink cleric who asked me to send some guide to God. In the area surrounding Cape Cold, I find a cloak which trades some physical bulk for elemental bulk, and some extra SP. Also I came across this man passed out in the snow. He looks cold. Hope he finds somewhere warm soon. In Cape Cold itself, there's a guy looking for a midwife as his wife is about to give birth. So I go back to Flame Church, bribe her with food, then return and bring her back, which rewards me with some money and a nut. And that's about all I can explore for now in the lower level areas, so it's time to explore some high level areas. To make it a bit safer, I go and pick up the Scholar secondary job class. It takes a few attempts to get there. All I can really do is run from fights and hope I live. But after a few tries I get to the house where I can obtain the Scholar job license. This allows me to access the skills of the 7 other starting job classes, and more importantly for now, their passives. By unlocking 2 random Scholar skills, I unlock Evasive Maneuvers, which lowers the rate of random encounters. It doesn't help with running from battles I can't win, but it's a start. By making use of this skill and saving a save point on the way to other locations, I can reset back to the save point if I die, which resets the chance of getting an encounter. Is it cheesy? Yes, but I'd rather do this than spend more time grinding. grinding. By doing this I reach Clock Bank, where I see the level of this dungeon, then immediately leave. Find a shield that could be useful later, but for now I don't equip it. And pick up the Thief class license by visiting this room at night. One of this class's passives will help out later when level grinding. Before leaving I get this mantle, which does lose me some SP, but the bulk and speed it provides I feel makes up for it for now. I know I'm constantly changing my armor around, and that I could just have planned ahead and save time and money, but I felt like trying to do as little planning as possible and just play like how I would in a first playthrough, only this time with one character. But trust me, the lack of planning bites me in the ass later on, and my attitude to not looking up anything changes. I head back to the anchorage on Totohaha and head over to Trokuhoku, but before getting there, I visit the altar of the Huntress just outside the village. Visiting this shrine with Ochette in the party unlocks a new skill exclusive to her, Indomitable Beast, which raises her attack, speed and evasion. Could be helpful. There wasn't much in Trokuhoku that I did, but I pick up an accessory to increase my speed. I believe having a high speed stat does help with the odds to run away in battle, so I pick up just in case. I decide to get the Cataracta Route chapter done now. As it doesn't have a boss tied to it, it should be easy enough to complete. And yeah, it was. Arriving in Conning Creek, Ochette gets mistaken for a furry cosplayer, and hears a strange noise that could be Cataracta. I check around town before investigating, picking up the Apothecary license while I'm here. I keep it equipped for now as it gives me a decent increase to my health over the Inventor class. Heading towards the noise, a woman called Alpione tries to stop us, and we act appropriately by fighting her. This is the closest thing to a boss in this chapter, but it's hard to find anything interesting to say about her when she only has 2 shield points and is defeated in 2 cycles. Anyway, Cataracta is dead. Alpione recovers, and after Ochette explains to her why she's here, Alpione asks to meet her deeper inside the cave. Inside, I pick up a rabbit shield from a chest, and I'm able to defeat some of the enemies in here, minus getting mauled by scorpions again. At the end of the cave, Alpione explains Cataracta was killed by the Dark Hunter, and over time, its remains was taken to be sold. But it did leave behind an egg before dying, which Alpione has been guarding ever since. Ochette warms the egg and it hatches into this little baby man.
Little baby.
Despite it being just born, it wants to come with Ochette to fight off the Night of the Scarlet Moon. And yeah, that's it for that chapter. Ochette departs Conning Creek with the first creature of legend. 2 more to go. But before taking on the Terror route though, I want to explore the rest of the mid-game areas for better items and get the rest of the secondary job classes, starting in Wellgrove where I find a better bow and obtain the Dancer job class. The rest of the areas were a bit more high level, so I do a bit of grinding, mainly for job points to unlock some more passives. I started grinding at the Cavern of the Sea God as most of the enemy groups there were relatively easy for me to take out, but it was a bit too slow for my liking, so I switched to Octopath farming. Octopaths function very similar to Cade's, except they give more money and job points over XP points. By getting the Octopath point from a side quest in Montwise, and unlocking the more rare monsters passive from the Hunter class, then encountering enemies at night in water, I have the best chances of finding Octopaths, but that still doesn't mean they're common. It can take a few minutes to find one, but they're really easy to defeat with 1 medium soulstone of any element. Combined with the hard work passive from the Dancer class, job point grinding shouldn't be too much of an issue anymore. Now I'm a bit higher level, I go and get some more job classes, like the Warrior class in Sai, and the Merchant class outside Crackridge. This one in particular will be easily the most important job class for the entire run. You'll see. After that, I wanted to try taking on one of the dungeon bosses, the Monarch. I was planning to take more on later in the run, but I only ended up taking on this one. It starts the fight by applying an effect that lets it avoid 3 physical attacks, but that is easily dealt with by using an aggressive slash from the Warrior class. Then I used 2 rounds of precise shots to get it down to 1 shield point. It puts me to sleep, so I miss a turn, but after waking up I use Indomitable Beast to have enough speed to go first next turn and break it. I can then do a big chunk of damage to it with a fully boosted Beastly Fangs. It recovers and summons some adds, and I use my turn to heal. I move last next turn, but I avoid the attacks of the adds. I use the Azure Urchin Beast to hit all enemies with a bow attack, which they are all weak to. I get to move first next turn, and do it again to break the adds. A third one that is fully boosted takes out one of them, and a precise shot with 1 boost takes out the second add and stuns the Monarch. I don't have any boost points to do big damage this time, so I use a Cleaving Blow to see what buff it gives. Unfortunately, it's just an elemental attack buff, which won't get any use. It gets me to low health after recovering, and I assumed it was close enough to death by now to use an Indomitable Beast to outspeed next turn, use a fully boosted precise shots to break it again and finish it off with Beastly Fangs. Blah. Yeah, that's unfortunate, but a complete misplay by me. I could have just healed and played it safe, but no, the Souls player in me saw the low health and went for the greed. Second attempt basically went exactly the same until I broke the ads, but this time I used a fully boosted attack from the Snowy Yak which kills both of them. I take some hits but then get 2 moves in a row, healing on the first and breaking the Monarch on the second with Precise Shot, boosted once. I use my remaining boost points on Beastly Fangs while it's broken, and thankfully it misses the Paralysing Mist upon recovering. Let me fire off 2 more Precise Shots, one being boosted to break it again. I use a Soul Stone but it lives, definitely would have died to a medium one. He gets me to low HP again after recovering and prepares a boost attack of its own, but I know I'm safe to heal here as it really doesn't do much damage. Once again I break it the same way I did last time, but it goes down this time. That was a fun fight actually. It didn't give me much I could use, but it put up a fair fight. Not something I can say about Ochette's chapter bosses, but I'll bitch about them later. Okay, to speed up this video a bit and get to the more important fights, I'm not going to go over every single item I find or buy, only ones that make an impact on the run, like these medium soul stones. I buy a few from the black market for when I find octopuffs and cates. I also unlocked the passive grows on trees from the merchant to get more money from fights, and life in the shadows as the final unlock from the thief class, which boosts XP and job point gain from fights at night, which stacks with other effects of similar nature. And for even more JP gain, I go and grab the last job class I needed to get, the Cleric, unlock Evil Ward, which boosts my chances of running away from battles, and enter the Cavern of Waves near the Totohaha anchorage. This is a very high level area, which is why I needed the Evil Ward to feel safe enough to go in here. It's enough to run away from the one encounter I get, and I can make my way to the chest with the JP Augmenter. With all of these effects I search for octopuffs in the water outside Clockbank, and defeating one gets me around 3,500 leaves and nearly 2,000 job points. I grind up until level 30, which is when I go and try and do Ochette's next chapter. Arriving in Crackridge, the Akala gets ready to do his best Pitbull named Princess impression. People still mistake Ochette for a furry, and then an earthquake happens.
That, or your mom just got out of bed. See?
The mayor overhears her mention of Terra, explaining that is what is causing the tremors. Asking him to guide her down to where Terra is, the mayor is struck with some sudden illness, so she's got to ask someone else. This guy named Pom will take Ochette to Terra, providing she goes and slaughter an innocent pig to satisfy his gluttony. So I head outside, find some butter meat, capture one to turn into jerky, and okay, they have hands. So I head outside, find some butter meat, capture one to turn into jerky, then finish off the rest of the enemies with beastly claws. First try. I give Pom the jerky, which the thought of being able to hunt your own food inspires him to become a hunter himself, which Ochette seems to doubt his abilities to do so. I can't see why. With that done, the path to the bed of the Titan has opened up. I tried to defeat some enemies here, but it looks like more trouble than it's worth, so I just equip evasive maneuvers and Evil Ward to get through with minimal trouble. The only chest worth mentioning here was the one with the protective bracelet, given 50 in both types of defense, 20 more than the blazon and protection I had on before. Before confronting Terra, I prepare by changing my passive setup, opting for the warrior class's summon strength for 50 more physical attack, the cleric's inner strength for 50 more SP, dance as the show goes on to extend how long my buffs last, and then heightened senses, which is a mainstay for any passive loadout going forward. Then for my equipment it was just what I already had on, being the highest stat items I had found by exploring. However, this lazy bastard is still asleep, so Ochette shouts his name and shoots down an arrow. Now a little peeved, I gotta calm it down. With more arrows. Once again I did no prep to what Terra was weak to, so I fired precise shots to see if he's weak to bow. No dice. He hits back very hard, so I don't see this attempt going very well. Regardless, I heal to try and get another opportunity to attack. He uses Sneeze at... oh. So this is a problem. See, this is the downside of not doing any preparation. Had I done this, I would have remembered that Terra has a move that will remove a party member from the battle for a few turns. And if he does this while no other party members are alive, or in my case, they aren't now, will instantly end the battle, effectively giving him an insta-kill move, which he has a very high chance to do, and can even do it turn 1 if he's feeling quirky today. So, what do I do now? Do I just grind? Well, that's what I started by doing at least. By robbing the elderly. It takes a while because the beasts I have are a weaker power level than a pensioner, but with the pufferfish to break and apply poison, then the kingfisher to hit for decent damage and apply a guaranteed dodge, she goes down easily enough. The kingfisher was actually a really good pickup. I got it back in the area outside Conic Creek and it's been real helpful while grinding. Being able to attack and dodge from one physical move is just such a good attack from a beast with only 4 power. Anyway, with the old lady knocked out, I can break into a house where I can get the cape powder. Same effect as the Octopath pot, but for Kates. The XP farm isn't as efficient as the job point one, as I can't get an XP augmenter at this point with only Ochette. But still, killing the Kate gives me around 2000 XP. Not bad by any means, it's nearly an entire level at this point of the game. I grind up to level 35 and unlock the Hunter class's Divine skill, Trace Fendi's Woe. Divine skills are powerful skills that can only be unlocked after unlocking all other skills in that class, and can only be used in battle when fully boosted. I figured getting this would do enough damage while Terra is broken, but it didn't do as much as I thought. I also forgot to record that footage. Not that those attempts went much further than the last time, but I do at least take less damage from the better stats and armor. At this point I was getting a bit frustrated, so I went to check on another video doing the same challenge to see what the general strategy was. And the solution to this puzzle is a bit anticlimactic. I'll just show you the full fight of the winning attempt to show you what I mean.
Come on, Terra! My prey awaits. Go on then! Sorry. Let's go! Go on then! Time to finish this! Right! Here we go! We'll do this the hard way! Now go earn it! Right! Now go earn it! Okay, looks like Terra's time to make the capture. My prey awaits. Mine now! Now let's grab some food.
So for those confused about where the hell that damage came from, let me break it down for you. I went back to pick up the Sapphire Beta outside Conning Creek in the water. It's the best multi-hitting attack I can get at this point that Terra is also weak to, hitting 2 to 3 times. On this attempt thankfully it hits all 3 times. Once he's broken, I use Beastly Howl from the latent power to drop his defenses. Once he recovers, he spends his turn removing one of his weaknesses, which doesn't even matter at this point. Then I use the one skill that saves this run, but makes it so much less interesting, Hired Help. This is a merchant skill that uses money to cast instead of SP, the power and any secondary effects of which depend on who is summoned and for how much it costs, with boosting adding one more person to the attack for the same price. For 30,000 leaves I can hire veteran soldiers, and their effect is doing a lot of damage, as you can see, with random weapon types. As I fully boosted I get this attack 4 times, which hits the damage cap on a hit Terra is weak to. This one attack is almost enough to entirely one-shot the boss, but as I get to move next turn thanks to heightened senses, I can safely use this attack again and finish Terra off. This has me conflicted. On one hand, it makes fights less of an issue than I thought, and I won't have to be stuck here just hoping he doesn't use a specific move. Even with this approach, I had to do 2 attempts because he used Sneeze before I could even break him. On the other hand, now that I remember how stupidly broken Hired Help is, this challenge run just becomes a game of spamming Hired Help on bosses and having enough defense to live a few attacks. I could just ban the use of Hired Help, sure, but the challenge cannot beat a solo run. Oh, and also I can't use this one specific skill because I said so. Also, it does mean I don't have to grind or worry too much about finding huge upgrades which end up one-shotting the boss anyway. And who knows, maybe the next boss requires a bit more effort than Terra did. I know, big, because I already did the run. Oh yeah, and Pom changes his mind about being a hunter. I wonder if the big toe had anything to do with it. As I ended up over at level M for Terra's battle, I was close enough to the recommended level of the next chapter to not feel the need to grind at all. I just headed into the late game areas with Evil Ward and base maneuvers and hope for the best. But before I could get into North Montwise Pass, I had to be up another guard. This one takes a bit longer than the previous Provoker fights, as my beasts have definitely been outclassed by now, but he doesn't do much damage either, and once again Kingfisher lets me avoid some of his attacks. I also show him my new pet turtle.
It don't bite. Yes, it don't!
The cave has a few bits of silver and gold ore for me to collect and sell later on, which is very helpful now I know money is now a resource that I'll need for battles. On the path to Stormhell, I collect even more money and a significant upgrade to both my bow and armor. In Stormhell itself, I find more armor which gives me more health, so the other armor I just mentioned has already been replaced. I then buy a better shield and headgear from the store, then go explore some other areas. I'll be back here soon for Ochette's next chapter. I go into a dungeon behind a waterfall because there was an accessory I wanted from here, the Blessing in Disguise. When equipped, any negative effect from other equipment are made positive. This was the point in the challenge where I was telling myself I would try not to use hired help on bosses, but spoiler alert, I give up on them. Even though I didn't end up using the Blessing in Disguise as much as I expected, I still got some money from here, so it wasn't a complete waste. The Rusty Staff is also here, which lets me unlock the War Master subclass if I wanted, but just like the Inventor class, I can't unlock all the skills due to some being locked behind half actions I can't do. I then head on over to Merry Hills and buy another bit of armor. Yeah, watching the run back, I really should have just looked up the best equipment for each section to get was, when I was already going out my way to look at other item locations and boss information. That aside, in Timberrain I get the Protected Necklace from the chest, which is a 30-point upgrade from the bracelet. Then in the Nameless Village I complete a side quest which give me more money and a big axe upgrade, immediately making the axe I got from Terra useless, which was the whole reason I got the Blessing in Disguise in the first place. Research would have prevented this, you know. After this I do try to defeat one of the bosses guarding a rusty weapon, and while I do a decent amount to it, I just do too little damage while it does too much. I don't bother with any more attempts and just go on to the next chapter, just to see how I fare against the next boss at this point. Arriving back in Stormhill, Ochette suspects that the raging blizzard in the mountaintops could be caused by the creature of legend, so it goes towards the mountain, which is conveniently being blocked by a racist. Here's Viner. I introduce him to my dog, and he's more than happy to let me pass. One self-caused avalanche later, and we see this nice fellow who has no bad intentions in this area that is blocked off from the public, and never mind, he wants to rematch with Glacius. I find a better bow on the way to the peak, where the Hunter's rematch didn't go too well, and Glacius is mad from a previous fight where the Hunters smashed up her egg because they didn't want to ruin their KD ratio. So once again, violence is the only way to calm her down. My first two attempts didn't go too well. Glacius does way too much damage, especially on her attack that hits 3 times. But I do discover her weakness to bow attacks, which I should have assumed, as most enemies with wings in this game are weak to bows. I try again with Apothecary for the increased health and health regen skill, but she still outdamages me by a lot. Okay, fine. I'll actually prepare for this fight. My plan for this one was to use Cleric for the higher elemental defense and access to the Prayer to the Flame skill, increasing both my defense stats. I also equipped the Ice Amulet because all her magic attacks do ice damage. I can survive attacks now, I just need damage. For this I use Beastly Howl when Glacius is 1 shield point away from breaking. Then once broken, I use Strafe Fendy's bow. However, the damage I end up doing is underwhelming, to put it nicely. Another issue that arises once some of her health is gone is her Absolute Zero move, which applies a freeze debuff that prevents me from acting. If I'm then hit while frozen, I go down to 1 HP, no matter how much damage that attack did. And if Glacius gets to move twice in a row after freezing me, that's a dead attempt. It's not as bad of an issue than Terra's Sneeze move, but if the turn order isn't on my side, I just lose. I go and get a better bow that also gives me more speed, hopefully giving me better chances of outspeeding. I also equip Bolster and Break as one of my passes, along with the one giving me more HP, attack, and as always heightened senses. This time, the damage is definitely better, doing around 11k, but it's still about as effective as throwing wet paper at her compared to hired help. Maybe an even better bow would do. After a bit of digging, it seems the Forbidden Bow is probably the best bow I'm able to get that won't be more trouble than fighting Glacius. It's locked behind this fight with a Beastling in the Nameless Village. Like the last time, it takes a while, but I use some medium and large soul stones to make it go by a little faster. So now when using Trifendi's bow I get... Okay, that wasn't really a big upgrade. Only around 1000 more damage. If the freeze debuff didn't set my health to 1 after being hit, this fight would definitely be less of an issue. It would still be an endurance fight, but at least it would be less of a dice roll to if I live or not. And even then, Glacius has more tricks to pull out at half health, where she summons 2 adds, making surviving after being frozen even less likely. And she sets up a field effect that saps my SP every turn. This isn't as much of an issue, but the adds need to go down quickly if I want a chance of winning, which actually came up with a really cool and unique strategy to deal with. Can you tell this is the point of the challenge where I gave up trying? Yep, back to the Merchant Secretary class, though the fight isn't going to be as free as Terra was once it's broken. Other than heightened senses, I put on Resilience from the Apothecary class to make healing effects better, Rise Again from the Cleric to revive me when falling in battle once, and there wasn't much else I needed, so I just put on Grows on Trees for a bit extra money at the end of the fight. The strategy for breaking remains the same. Shit, I forgot to equip the Ice Talisman again after Octopath farming. Alright, run it back. As I was saying, the strategy for breaking remains the same. Precise shots until she's down to 1 shield point, Beastly Howl to break, then this time use a fully boosted hired help and effortlessly hit damage cap 4 times. all thanks to capitalism. Once recovering, the win is basically handed to me on a silver platter. She freezes me and my next two actions are lost, but the first turn after she summons the ads, and on the second she applies the SP sap effect while the ads just set up buffs to themselves. By the time one gets to attack, I'm already unfrozen, and all it takes is one more hired help to finish the fight. That last one was absolutely overkill. Glacius was already at death's door, but I was petty and didn't want to take any chances. I don't feel too good about pulling out the merchant cheese again, but I really just wanted to get this challenge run over and done with. I went in assuming this would be a quick, fun, and not overly challenging run to do as the first video, but it seems I chose one of the worst possible characters to do a solo run with as my first. While seeing what some others online had to say about this run, I see that at one point in time it was believed that this run was impossible due to how the final boss works. Seeing this, yeah, I wasn't about to come up with my own elaborate strategy to get through this, so I just saw what others were doing online and tried to replicate that. I did also notice a certain choice that all these runs made, but I'll talk about that once I get to the final boss of the run. Anyway, Glacius has now calmed down, agrees to come back with Ochette, and the hunter finally realizes that hunting things for sport is bad. And with that, all three creatures of legend are in Ochette's possession, and preparation for the Night of the Scarlet Moon can commence. Which is why I head straight back to the Beastling Village without preparing. Okay, not exactly. I looked over my equipment and passives and felt I didn't need anything else. Weapons don't matter much when my damage doesn't come from weapons, my defense is good, and yeah, I'm under the recommended level, but others who have done this challenge have done it at way lower levels, so I should be fine. There actually was one other thing I did before leaving Storm Hell, which was befriending a Clan May soldier. I haven't really messed with summons for basically the whole playthrough, but this specific NPC will really help out in the upcoming fight. Now I can head up to the Summit of Strife where the Beastlings and Soldier Line are preparing, which is where he actually explains what the Night of the Scarlet Moon is. Should we start with that? The British come back yet again, wanting more land, but they don't stick around long after Soldier Line warns them of the incoming danger, so they hold off with colonising for now. So before we can move on to the boss, there's 3 enemy waves to get through. The first one goes down after 2 arrow barrages from the Urchin, Terra having a stomp, and a Beast Claws. I made that sound simple, but I had to spend a while just chucking down healing grapes until I had a safe opportunity to attack. On the second wave, I remember I have Soul Stones and use a large wind one, but that could have gone better. But it's nothing I'll need to prepare more for. I noticed I still had the running away passives on, so I switched them out for boost start to start the fights with 1 more BP and resilience. The first fight goes much smoother, going down to 1 large soul stone and an attack from Glacius. In the second fight, all it takes to hire the guards at a full boost, and the enemies fall in 1 turn. The last fight I do, I have to heal first turn, then an instant death spell is cast on me, which will activate in 4 turns. Thankfully, it only takes 2 more turns to repeat the same setup I did for the first fight, just in the reverse order, to end that. Ignore how close I was to dying. I don't think even Rise Again would have helped much if it had come to that. While heading over to the boss, I run into some enemies that I actually can't run from. Seems I forgot that for this final stretch, I have to defeat any enemies that I encounter, which means I can swap out Evil Ward for something to help out with enemies more. So I put Boost Start back on. I also make sure to pick up the Revitalizing Jam from a chest, which fully recovers HP, SP, and BP. I changed my passives to the same set I had for Glacius, and I equip a bracelet to increase my health by 500 points to ensure I can take as many hits as possible. With that, it's time to end the run. But before I get into the attempts, remember when I said that the others who have done this run made a certain choice? Well, that choice was the animal companion they chose at the start. Ochette's story is unique where it can actually have one of 2 final bosses, and the one you get depends on what companion is chosen at the start. As I chose a Carla, I have to fight the owl, but any footage of this run I found always chose the owl. And as it turns out, this is the better option for the run, as all but one of the Jackal's attacks are physical, so there's less opportunity to get hit. The owl, however, has 2 elemental attacks that it can use and 2 physical, so while sidestep spam will still work, the fight will be harder. All because I failed to do research on this run, but I've come this far, and I am not going to restart over 1 mistake. Let's do this. The first 3 turns of this fight are heavily scripted. On turn 1, the game forces you to use a fully boosted Actor, which will give both types of defense boost for 4 turns. This seems good, but by the time the fight becomes less scripted, the defense buff is gone. The owl will then use both of his elemental moves. On turn 2, it uses both physical moves. What I do this turn really depends on the next turn's order, but usually I just use a large energizing pomegranate to instantly give me 4 BP. On the third turn, the owl will prey on a random party member, bringing them down to 1 HP and gaining new abilities depending on who is targeted. However, because I only have Ochette in the party, she will always get preyed on and will instantly force the battle into its final phase. phase. The owl then does one other move, then enters boost mode, and it will cast Malevolent Lightning on its next turn unless I break it first. This move will set the entire party to 1 HP. This is usually where most attempts end. If I move last on the phase transition turn, I go down and use the revive from Rise Again, which most of the time makes me move last the next turn. So all it takes is Malevolent Lightning and any other attack to finish me off and end the attempt. Unless I have used Sidestep beforehand and it uses a physical attack. Through doing these attempts, I pick up some strategies. For example, on turn 2, if I see that next turn I move last, I know a revive is going to be used up anyway, so using a pomegranate is a waste, as falling in battle and reviving will remove any BP from the character. Instead I summon a Carla, whose attack changes in this phase to a dagger attack that hits 3 times, which sets up for a break. My general plan for this fight is to get the owl into a position where I can Beastly Howl to break, have enough BP to use a fully boosted hired help, and enough health to survive the next 2 attacks after it recovers. This is where the soldier I befriended earlier comes into play. One of the attacks she can do is called Bright Bolt, which hits for lightning damage 3 times, an element the boss is weak to. Unfortunately this isn't a guarantee and she can use a regular attack or a double hit attack, both doing spear damage, which isn't a weakness. The best case scenario is to have the boss at 4 or 1 shield points, then use Beastly Howl to drop defenses. If it is at 4, then I have to hope the soldier uses Bright Bolt to get the break. Once broken, I can then fire off the hired help, hitting damage cap 4 times for nearly 40,000 damage. This boss has 96,000, so 2 of these and another decently powerful attack should do the job. The issue is just getting the turn order to line up in my favour. The later the revive activates, the better, but that doesn't happen often, usually getting used up on the 3rd or 4th turns. I tried many different loadouts to see what is the most effective. I try equipping Fleetfoot and speed increasing accessories to see if that helps me outspeed. I can't tell if this actually made much of a difference though. I try Salt the Wound to see if I can get an extra turn when I break it. It didn't activate any of my attempts, whether because it didn't activate or the attempt died before I could get to break it. But I knew it was possible, I just had to keep adjusting the build and trying until the game decides I can win. This is the biggest issue with the run really. It's either one-shot the boss before it can do anything of note, or spin the roulette wheel that is heavily rigged against you. It was a bit of a struggle to get the run going, but once I had some good gear and levels, I was enjoying it somewhat. But once I got to Terror and saw just what I got myself into, the fun quickly faded. To clarify, this isn't the game's fault. Although it does let you do a solo run, it's very clear with fights like Terror and this final boss that it isn't the intended way to play the game. And I think even the developers realised this, not including a solo run achievement in the game, and even removing it from the PlayStation release of the first game in 2024. If I do end up deciding I want to do another solo run for some reason, I'll actually research each boss in the run to see if it will be as luck dependent, and probably ban hired help. I used it here because I started the run allowing everything except the use of other characters, but it makes the need for finding better weapons redundant, so if there is a next time, it's not being used. Alright, with Assault out of my system, back to the run with my final attempt. In all my attempts, I had always had Rise Again and Heightened Sensors on, but for the other 2 skills, I had Hell and Hearty and Fleetfoot on. I had taken off Hell and Hearty for a few runs, but put it back on because I took off the accessory that has the same effect, and put on both the Ice and Wind Amulet, reducing their respective elements. Very conveniently, these are the only elements that the boss has, and these are the only element reducing accessories I picked up. This means I will take more damage from physical attacks, as I had to remove the protective necklace, but I can just negate physical hits with Sidestep. Turn 1 goes the same as always, buff with Actor, take 2 magic hits. Turn 2 I move last and take both hits, but I get to move first next turn. So I use this turn to summon the soldier, who annoyingly uses Bright Bolt while he isn't weak to it. Then using Sidestep boosted once next turn to gain 2 evasions from physical hits and... okay, seriously, you could not have done this in my previous attempts. Anyway, it brings me down to 1 HP and phase transitions, then misses the Red Knight, and it uses Malevolent Lightning next turn. But I'm still on 1 HP, so it does nothing. This is where I use the Revitalizing Jam to restore all my health and BP. Then the soldier uses Bright Bolt for a 3rd time. I forgive you for all these previous attempts where you failed me. She retreats and then the owl gets 3 turns to hit me, hitting 2 Dark Ices and a regular attack that gets dodged. I refresh the Sidestep buff, getting 4 this time from the fully boosted version, then avoiding 1 Red Knight and taking a Dark Wind. I resummoned the soldier for 4 in a row? You really want this redemption arc, huh? Next turn, I use the Beastly Howl to break, and okay, this is getting ridiculous now. With the owl broken, I can fire off the fully boosted hired help with no problem. Then the soldier gets a 6 Bright Bolt in a row. The owl recovers, hitting me with both elemental attacks, then prepares to use Malevolent Lightning. I see next turn I move between both of its turns, so I'm safe to bring the soldier back for a 7th Bright Bolt. You get it, you proved your point. The Malevolent Lightning brings me to 1 HP, and the Refreshing Jam restores all of it. The Bright Bolt streak ends, but I can't even be mad at her after that streak. I get hit with 1 elemental attack, and then dodge the physical. I use my next turn to reapply the sidestep. So how about an 8 for Bright Bolt? I take a hit, then use a Pomegranate to bring back my BP, or the soldiers use another Bright Bolt, breaking me out. I didn't get to apply the defense debuff, but the hired health still does around 9,000 per hit, so it should be close enough to death, especially with how many Bright Bolts it got hit by. It recovers and hits 1 magic attack, and I bring back the soldier, only using a regular attack. I get another turn, and my best way to bring down the shield points would have been to hire beastlings, which reduce shield points regardless of weakness, but I ran out of money to hire them. It's fine though. I have a Plains Drake as one of my beasts, which hits twice 5th sword damage. Guess what the soldier does? The owl uses 2 physical moves, then prepares Malevolent Thunder. At this point, I'm very cautious, even though the win condition is right there. Use the Drake again to break, then finish it off with Glacius or Terror. But I guess because I was so nervous about losing and having to spend who knows how many more attempts getting back here, instead I still break with the Drake, then you already know. But instead of using Terror or Glacius, I use a fully boosted Beastly Fangs. It probably would have killed if I had some strength on, but this was objectively a stupid move that I am lucky I'm not punished for. Upon recovery, the owl uses 2 physical attacks which are evaded. I heal and take 2 more attacks, and then I make another dumb move, summoning the soldier back when I could have just used sidestep to be safe, or use Glacius of Terror because it's definitely in killing range now. But no, I summon, the soldier uses a regular attack, 2 physical hits bring me down to 481 HP, and it charges up another Malevolent Thunder. I move last next turn, so my revive will be for sure used up, and then I could go down for good if I don't move first the next turn, so I just go for it. I'm so glad my misplays were unpunished, because I was not about to do another attempt if I lost it. The Clan Mei soldier absolutely carried that attempt. I don't know how lucky it was to get 7 Bright Bolts in a row, then use 3 more in the rest of the fight, but it made up for how bad I played the final bit of that fight. Looking back at the footage, I was shocked how awful my decision making was. Combined with me not going in with enough money to use more hired helps, I should have lost that fight, but I didn't. The owl is put out of his misery, the Night of the Scarlet Moon ends, the run is complete, and this random ass unnamed soldier is now my new favourite Octopath character. Thanks for sticking around until the end. I may have found parts of this run tedious and boring, but it's still Octopath, so the masterpiece of a soundtrack kept me company at least. I'll definitely do another run, just using multiple characters next time. I'm not sure what yet, but it won't be the next video. I was thinking of doing a Monster Hunter or Elden Ring challenge run next, but I haven't locked in anything yet. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I'll see you whenever I'm done with the next one.